All right, everybody. How are we doing? Welcome back to Baseball Scoops. We are getting down to the final two teams of this start of the week for these previews, and we are talking about the Buccos, the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think this team is going to be like the surprise team in the National League. I do. I think this team is going to take the necessary steps. I think this team is going to be much more competitive. I think they really pushed all the right buttons and they did all the right things. And this is a team that they address their needs. And I think that's all you can ask for when it comes to the offseason. And I don't mean they put band aid fixes. I think they went out and got really reliable guys that can come in and legitimately perform and deliver wins for this baseball team. And I think can you make the case to be made that the Pirates won the offseason? I think you can, in the sense of they actually did what they were supposed to do. And then when you look at which teams won the offseason, it's like, who really did? The Dodgers. They went out, they spent the money, the resources they have to land the two best players at their respective positions. There's that. Then you look at a team like the Mariners. It's like they have very few holes in their roster, but they went out and got guys that legitimately plugged holes and make their team better. They bring back Naylor. They add Brendan Donovan. They're probably going to implement some of the young kids, and it's just they have the pitching. So it's like they're fine, and that's what makes that a win. Then you can ask yourself, did the Tigers do it? And it's like they didn't really do a lot, but they did enough to maybe bolster their chances. I do like that. You can maybe, make a case like did the Mets win? It's really tough to say. They just underwent like a culture change. But they did a lot of really good things, and I think you can make a case like that maybe they could be in the winners category. But I really do think the Pirates are in this category, and for good reason. And we're going to start with the offense, because the way this preview is going to be framed is that the work that they did helps what they have that's their strength. And that's what I think matters. But this team was really bad. This team was dead last in runs when it comes to average, OBP, everything of that nature. This team was just bottom five. It was the bottom tier offense, and it's as a Pirates fan, it has to be frustrating when you have the pitching that you do. And it's not even just Paul Skeens. We're going to get into that, but it's the rest of that staff that goes out there and performs and delivers, and your offense can't come through. And it's just like, imagine how many more games you would win if you had a competent offense. You look at their qualified hitters from a season ago, they struggled. You had three qualified hitters in Brian Reynolds, Andrew McCutchen, O'Neal Cruz, and nobody had a WRC plus above 100. Brian Reynolds was the closest at 99, and Andrew McCutchen had 95. And then you look at O'Neal Cruz, who 86. McCutchen had 13 home runs, which was fine. But you get into like O'Neal Cruz, and I mean, McCutchen is what he is now. I mean, he's an aging veteran that does have a pedigree in this league. He did want to come back to the Pirates. It's kind of a bummer that he didn't, because I think it's one of those things where like you want to see him finish his career there, kind of like Pete Alonso with the Mets. It's like you want to see those guys finish, where it all began. But you kind of get into O'Neal Cruz, and O'Neal Cruz is a very fascinating piece, because I think he really is the real deal when it comes to being a game time player. It just, this year was a struggle. You look at this guy, and he stole 38 bases, highest in his career. He hit 20 home runs for the second season in a row, but you look at his slash line, it's very underwhelming. He hit 200, and for a guy who hit 20 home runs, he only slugged 378 with a 676 OPS. It was not good. 86 WRC plus is not great. He's got immense sprint speed. He has great arm strength for being a defender. You want to see maybe the defense elevate itself a little bit. There were times where he definitely looked lackadaisical out there. This is a guy who he has like a decent approach. The walks are there. That's where the OBP comes into play. He's going to generate his walks. Walks at 11.8% clip, but he strikes out a ton, 32%. The swing and miss rates are just alarmingly high. I mean, he was second and third percentile in this regard. That's not good. But you look at the bat speed. The bat speed's there. 100th percentile bat speed. And then it translates to hard hit rate, barrel, average exit velocities. He has all those tools. It's just you want to see a better approach at the plate. But when this guy gets a hold of one, like it's a mammoth of a home run. That's where it kind of comes in, and it's like, you expect the hard contact, but you just want to see a better approach. And I think that's what you can get. But it was a very down year in terms of just his slash line. It just wasn't great. And then you look at what he did in terms of, what pitches he could hit. I mean, he struggled with breaking ball pitches. It just was not good. I mean, and he has struggled to pull the ball in the air pretty much since his 2021 season. So that stuff has gone down a little bit significantly. But yeah, he struggled against fastballs a little bit more this year than last year, where he was hitting 354 against a four-seamer compared to 196. He just took a notable step back at the plate. And I think this is a guy that you kind of need to be like your game-changing player. I mean, he kind of is that guy. But then it's like, what do you add? I think another player too, just to talk. I mean, just Reynolds, it's like you kind of know what you're going to get here, but you want to see a little bit more. In general, I mean, this guy, 16 home runs, hit 24 home runs respectively in 2024 and 2023. His slash line too took a little bit of a dive. Good contact hitter, can have a little bit of hard hit rate, some good power. He slugged above 400 each of the last 3 seasons, so that's huge. But it's not ideal. But now you kind of look at what they added. What they added, I think, is fantastic. You get a guy like Ryan O'Hearn, and I think that's massive. I think that's huge. I think he's a really good player. A guy who can come in and play first base. I think that matters. This is a team who's kind of had a black hole at first base. Nothing against Rowdy Tellez. I think Rowdy Tellez had his what's the right word? He kind of had his moments, per se. As a guy who can kind of hit for power, but didn't really do much of anything else. But O'Hearn's really nice. He's a really nice player. He's a good contact-oriented hitter. Could definitely give you some hard hit rates. You need stable bats, and this is what that is. And he's going to give you good defense at first base. He was 89th percentile in that regard. It's nice. He walks. He generates his walks to get on base. The strikeouts aren't bad. They're slightly above the average percentile, so he's 56. That's not horrendous. He did a really good job of just hitting and slugging against fastballs and breaking pitches. It's not bad. I mean, when you look at the ballpark, expected home runs by ballpark, Pittsburgh, I mean, it would have been significantly different from the 17 he hit, would have been 12. But I think overall, just from the makeup of what you're getting a good defensive first baseman and a guy that can kind of just come in and just be a stable bat in your lineup. And that's really what you need. You need a stable bat. And then they make the big trade. They send Burrows to the Astros. Melton goes to the Rays. You get a guy like Brandon Lau. That's really massive. I think Brandon Lau is going to be the headliner of this one. That's just me personally. But Brandon Lau is a nice player. This is a guy who has done really, really well in his career just from a hitting standpoint. This is kind of what you need. The bat speed is very much there. The hard hit rates are there. The barrel rates are there. It's a guy who's going to make really hard contact, and he does a really good job of pulling the baseball. He's at a pull rate above 40% each of the last 3 seasons. In terms of pulling the ball, it's been very consistent, 23.8% in 2023 in the air, 23.3% 2024 in the air, 23.9%, which is the second highest of his career in 2025. So he had a very successful season. So that's massive coming to Pittsburgh. He crushed fastballs, slugged heavily against fastballs. You look at the home runs, against the fastball, 19 of his 32 home runs came against the fastball, which is massive. But you look at his overall makeup just of, what he's done in his career. For home runs, he had a career high of 39 home runs in 2021. And then each of the last 3 seasons, he's had 21, 21, 31 home runs. It's been really, really good. So you kind of know what you're going to get there. The defense is really suspect. I don't really know where they're going to play him. Could be second base, could be the outfield. That's the interesting thing is that I'm looking at their depth chart now. Brandon Lau is pegged to play second base, but I think when you look at it, you can maybe plug in like a Nick York because you can also put him in the outfield. They also got Jake Mangum. I think Jake Mangum is a really, really good outfielder. He played with the Rays. He's a very interesting piece to this puzzle. I think it's a nice young building block for this team. I think it's a team that literally can probably try and get the most out of him. You kind of know how the Rays operate. They like defensive center fielders. Like think of Kev Kiermaier at that time. But they do believe in Jake Melton. I think Melton's a perfect fit there. He's a good defensive minded center fielder. So that's what will work there. But you look at this and he like the home runs aren't going to be there. He's not going to give you power. His spray chart's kind of a lot of weak contact. So a lot of balls that really don't leave the infield, which I think, if you change his approach. But again, look at this guy. It's his first year. It was his first full season in 2025 with the Rays. But he hit 296 with a 698 OPS. So I think the tools are there. The defense is great. So that's a guy you can kind of plug into your center field as well. Looking at the depth chart, he is behind O'Neal Cruz, but he can also play right and he can also play left. So he is behind guys like that. I am shocked to see that like Spencer Horowitz is at first and O'Hearn's in the outfield. That's per Fangraphs. That's kind of interesting to me. But again, there's options. There's options here. There just are. And I think that's the fascinating part. I do like Jake Mangum in this move, but I think what you're getting is you get a guy like Marcell Ozuna. He's going to be your DH, a big bopper. You need that big thumper of a bat in your lineup. I mean, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for power. You're paying for a big bopper. And I think when you look at the combination of all these guys, it's elite. And you look at what Marcell Ozuna did. He walked at a 15.9% clip, which is literally top 2% of MLB last year. The strikeout rate, a little high, but he doesn't swing outside the zone, makes a lot of contact in the zone. He's your bopper. He's your big bat. 21 home runs, hit 40 in 2023 with the Braves where they had their nuclear season. And then he hit 39 a season ago in 2024. So still a really good bat, still a really good approach. And he's going to give you what you need. And I think that's the mantra here. A team that was offensively anemic just added bats that can step up to the plate and deliver. And I think guys to look for like Nick York, I think that's a player to watch for. He's had a really nice spring. He could play a good defensive second base. What you get with the bat is what you get. And it just kind of is what it is. But this offense is going to deliver. And you're hoping it delivers because you have a pitching staff that's lights out. You have a pitching staff that was literally the best in baseball, one of the best in baseball from a season ago. You look at the pitching from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Overall, they had the 7th lowest ERA. You look at their rotation had the 6th lowest ERA. So you had a really good rotation that got very little run support. And you have the best pitcher arguably in baseball on your staff. You have Paul Skeens. He had a 1.96 ERA in 2024. Increased his workload by 9 starts and increased his innings pitched by like 54 innings. A 1.97 ERA. The whip stayed the same at 0.95. He is literally the definition of consistency. I mean, across the board. And this is a guy who really increased his arsenal. Like he threw more pitches. He wanted to find new ways to beat batters. And it's electric. He had 2 pitches with a whiff rate above 40%. He had 2 more pitches that had a whiff rate above 30%. His four-seamer, 29.6%. You might as well count that 30%. His only pitch that pretty much got like tagged for a batting average above 300 was his curveball, and that was his fewest thrown pitch. Everything else just plays up. He has so many different ways he can beat you, and he's truly a dynamic presence on the mound. He is the best pitcher in baseball, like arguably, especially in the National League. I don't even think it's really I mean, I think there's guys you could debate like Christopher Sanchez, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. There's so many guys like in the National League that you could really make a case like, oh, they might be better, but I really do think it's Paul Skeens to lose. But you look at the staff afterwards. Bubba Chandler, number 2 prospect in the system. Um, you know, he made 4 starts last year, even had a save, but he's looked good in camp. The swing and miss is present. The velocity is top tier. It's really about honing in the secondaries. His command was impeccable last year. It was a 3.2% walk rate, which is phenomenal. Does get a lot of whiff, does get a lot of chase outside the zone, keeps the ball on the ground. I mean, he's a really good pitcher. It's just a matter of can he develop his secondaries. And I think it's possible. I mean, his changeup was really untouchable. Same with his slider. Curveball got smacked around quite a bit. So he's a really good pitcher to watch for. I mean, I think he's going to really spearhead the front of this rotation. You look at, him and Skeens, like you got that coming out. It's pretty dynamite. Two righties here. Like it's pretty remarkable. And I think a player that really shouldn't be slept on. They traded like Burrows, but when you have a guy like Braxton Ashcraft, that's a player that really shouldn't be slept on by anybody. I'm a big fan of Braxton Ashcraft, like sophomore pitchers to watch for, or in general. And he was the one that kind of made the cut. He made 8 starts, 2.71 ERA. He did qualify. He had 69.2 innings pitched, a 1.25 WHIP. There's a lot of good things to like here. Doesn't get barreled to death. Really does a good job limiting hard contact. Keeps the ball on the ground. There are, some swing and miss in the game, the chase, but he really doesn't give up hard contact. And I think that's massive for this defense. And then you look at the stuff that he does, and you like it. You gotta like his arsenal a little bit. I like it. He really leans with the slider, and the 4-seamer kind of plays off of it. But his top put, he has 3 different pitches that he uses 20% of the time for put away. So that's massive. The 4-seamer obviously isn't one of those. But you look at his velo. The velo's there, especially the fastball velo. Sinker sits at 96.6, and the 4-seamer's right at 97. He's got a 91-mile-an-hour changeup in terms of average velocity. You probably want to see the velo come down a little bit just to kind of, try and fool batters, or hopefully like the movement kind of is deceptive. But his curveball was very untouchable. 122 batting average against, 204 slugging against, a 36.6% whiff rate. Like that's dynamite, dude. Like that's dynamite. Mitch Keller is kind of like your definition of consistency. I think that's a pitcher that you kind of know what you're going to get at this point with him. He's a player that's kind of been in trade talks. Like he was pegged to go to maybe the Cubs at the trade deadline and never manufactured. But this is a guy who's a lock for 30-plus starts. He pretty much just takes the ball every 5th day, gets the job done, gets the outs. Not a big strikeout guy, but good at limiting his walks, keeping the ball on the ground. He just gets the job done. That's really what it is. But the strikeouts are there because he had 210 in 2023. So, it's there. This is a good pitcher. You want to see him actually limit the hard contact. That'd be a nice start. But overall, you just kind of know what you're getting. His arsenal is really, really deep. It was fairly consistent in terms of getting tagged. His batting average against, all the slugging against was very, very neck and neck. So, you kind of know what you're getting in. I think that 5th spot is very up in the air per se. The biggest one in terms of a factor here is Connor Griffin, top prospect in baseball. You kind of know what you're going to get with him, a very reliable bat. Good hard contact, can hit for average, hit for power. Haven't seen the AAA level yet, so I'm curious if it's like a Roman Anthony situation where he does go ahead, starts in AAA, and then maybe comes up in the beginning to middle of the year, kind of the May time area, just to give him some extra seasoning. But I think in terms of your upside, you need Connor Griffin, an offense that added pieces like O'Hearn and Ozuna and even Mangum and Lau, guys like that. It's You add a guy like Griffin, it kind of like changes the trajectory of your offense. It kind of changes your outlook. I mean, it gives you a generational talent. If the hype really is real with this kid and the hype is there, and what does that look like? Like we're seeing what Kevin McGonigal's doing right now, and the hype is very real with that kid. That kid deserves to be on the opening day roster. And I think you could make a case for Connor Griffin too. You obviously don't want to rush these kids. He would be the first 19-year-old since Juan Soto to make the opening day roster. So it's a lot of pressure to put on him, but it's like you have the generational pitcher in Paul Skeens, and then you get the generational hitter potentially in Connor Griffin. And that is some exciting times if you are a Pittsburgh Pirates fan. Like there's no debating that. Like that's how exciting things are. So for me, it's like, what am I watching for? It's like I'm watching Connor Griffin. I'm wanting to watch like his development. I want to watch, if he does start in AAA, like what's his progression like? Like what does that look like for him? Is it ideal? And then you go ahead and you sit there and you see what is his development like even at the MLB level where guys are still learning and growing, because that's what young players do. There's always room to grow and build, and that's what I think he can do. Who am I most excited to watch is Bubba Chandler. Obviously Paul Skeens. Paul Skeens is my favorite player in the MLB that doesn't play for my favorite team. Like, if you guys don't already know, I'm a Red Sox fan. But I love baseball. And Paul Skeens is my favorite player that's not on the Red Sox. And then you sit there and you think to yourself, like, who else is exciting? And it's Bubba Chandler to me, because I'm excited to see what he does. I think he's a very electric arm. He has I think I like his stuff. His stuff is good. And I like his velocity. I think he brings a lot to the mound. A really high velocity presence. I do like that. I like it. I want to see what his secondaries do. But I'm excited to watch him because I think this rotation has a lot of upside. And then I think you can say the same thing about Braxton Ashcraft. I'm very high on him. I think fans should be high on him too, because I think there's a lot that he offers to this team. And I'm excited. But yeah, I'm very excited for a player like Bubba Chandler. And I'm excited for a player like Braxton Ashcraft. It's going to be fun times. Like if you're a Pirates fan, these are probably the most exciting times you've had. From fans calling to fire the owner, for just, it's like all you had to look forward to was Paul Skeens Day. And now it's like you can really look forward to actually watching this baseball team like on a daily basis. And given this pitching staff, I think they're appointment television. I do. I know that sounds crazy, but I think this is appointment television because of what the mound presence has. But I genuinely do think there's some exciting times. And I do think like there is a world where the Pirates do challenge. Like I'm not saying the Pirates are in the same tier as the Cubs or the Brewers, but I am saying that this team could challenge for a top 3 spot in the division if all clicks right. That's not outlandish to say. I think this pitching can win a lot of baseball games, and if the offense can give it the proper run support that it needs and deserves, this is a good baseball team. I just will say that right now. That is a good baseball team. But without further ado, this is the end of the Buccos preview. Let's go Pirates.